You think about someone you haven't spoken to in years. Your phone rings. It's them. You need an answer to a question that's been haunting you. You open a book at random, and the first sentence you read is exactly what you needed to hear. You're about to make a decision that could change everything, and everywhere you look, the same number keeps appearing. 1111, 333, 555. Signs that feel too specific, too perfectly timed to be meaningless. Most people call this coincidence. Carl Jung called it something else. He called it synchronicity, and he believed it was the universe speaking directly to you. These moments aren't accidents. They're not random noise in a chaotic world. They're part of a hidden order, a pattern woven into the fabric of reality itself. And once you understand what they are, once you learn to recognize them and work with them, you stop feeling like a passive observer in your own life. You start to see that reality isn't something that happens to you. It's something you're actively shaping, and synchronicity is the proof. In this video, we're going to explore what Carl Jung discovered about synchronicity and why it matters for your life right now. We're going to break down the difference between coincidence and synchronicity so you know when the universe is actually responding to you. We're going to look at the specific signs that tell you a synchronicity is occurring, how to interpret their personal meaning for you, and most importantly, how to use them as a navigation tool for manifestation and alignment. We're going to examine Jung's collaboration with quantum physics, the concept of meaningful coincidence, and why these events are proof that consciousness and reality are in constant dialogue. If you've ever felt like the universe was speaking to you through signs, symbols, repeated numbers, or impossible timing, this is the knowledge that will help you understand what's really happening and why it's happening more than you think. Before we go deeper into this, if this kind of knowledge speaks to you, subscribe to the channel. This is where we keep building on this work together. This is just the beginning of what we're uncovering. So what is synchronicity? Let's start with Jung's actual definition, because most people get this wrong. They use the word synchronicity to describe any coincidence that feels meaningful, but Jung was far more precise than that. Synchronicity is not just a coincidence. It's not luck. It's not confirmation bias or your brain pattern matching in overdrive. Jung defined it very specifically. A synchronicity is a meaningful coincidence. It's when an external event in the physical world mirrors or matches an internal psychological state, and there's no causal relationship between the two. That last part is critical. There's no logical explanation for why the external event should match your internal state. No chain of cause and effect, no physical mechanism linking them, but it does. And the match is so precise, so perfectly timed, that it feels impossible to ignore. Let's break that down with real examples so you can feel what this means. You're going through something emotionally. Let's say you're grieving the end of a relationship, and you're wondering if you made the right choice. You're walking down the street, lost in that question, turning it over in your mind, and a stranger walks past you wearing a shirt with a phrase that directly answers what you were just thinking. Not a generic phrase, not something vague, but the exact words you needed to hear in that moment. Or you're torn between two job offers, unsure which path to take. You're sitting at your desk, paralyzed by indecision, and you sit down, open your laptop, and the first email in your inbox is a newsletter you forgot you subscribed to months ago. The subject line says exactly what you needed to hear. Choose growth over comfort. And suddenly, the answer is clear. Or you dream about a specific animal, a red cardinal. You wake up and you don't think much of it, but the image stays with you. You go about your morning, make coffee, look out the window, and there's a red cardinal sitting on your windowsill, staring directly at you. And in that moment, something shifts. You feel seen. You feel like reality just responded to something inside you. These aren't accidents. These aren't your brain playing tricks. Jung spent decades studying these patterns. He noticed them in his own life. He noticed them in the lives of his patients, and he realized that they were far too common, far too specific, far too emotionally charged to be dismissed as random chance. Here's what makes synchronicity different from coincidence. A coincidence is meaningless. It's two events happening at the same time or in close proximity with no deeper connection. You run into someone you know at the grocery store. That's a coincidence. It happens. The world is smaller than it seems. But if you've been thinking about that person all week, wondering whether you should reach out to apologize for something that happened years ago, and then you run into them in a city of millions, in a store you never go to, and the first thing they say to you is, "I've been thinking about you," that's synchronicity. The difference is meaning. The difference is resonance. The difference is that when a synchronicity happens, you feel it. There's an emotional charge, a shiver down your spine, a sense of rightness, a knowing that goes beyond logic. Your body recognizes it before your mind does. Jung believed that synchronicities were proof of something most people don't want to accept, that the boundary between the inner world and the outer world is not as solid as we've been taught. That consciousness and matter are not separate realms. That reality is not a fixed, objective stage on which we play out our lives while having no impact on the scenery. Jung was saying the opposite. Reality is responsive. It's alive, it's listening, and it's in constant communication with you if you're paying attention, if you're open, if you're willing to see the signs. This is where synchronicity becomes more than just a curious psychological phenomenon. It becomes a doorway, a way to see how reality actually works beneath the surface, and a tool you can use to navigate your life with more clarity, more power, and more alignment than you ever thought possible. Because if reality is responsive, if your internal state is being reflected back to you through external events, then you're not powerless. You're not at the mercy of circumstance. You're in dialogue. You're co-creating. And that changes everything. Now let's talk about where this idea came from, because understanding Jung's journey into synchronicity will deepen your own understanding of what's happening in your life right now. Carl Jung didn't start out looking for synchronicity. He wasn't a mystic. He wasn't chasing spiritual experiences. He was a psychiatrist, trained in the scientific method, working with patients who were dealing with deep psychological wounds, trauma, neurosis, fragmented identities. His job was to help people make sense of their inner worlds so they could function better in the outer world. But over and over again, he kept noticing something strange. His patients would tell him about dreams they'd had, vivid, symbolic dreams, and then, sometimes within hours, sometimes within days, the content of those dreams would show up in their waking life. Not metaphorically, literally. A patient would dream about a golden scarab beetle. She'd never seen one before, didn't know what it was. And during the session where she was describing the dream, skeptical, dismissive, resistant to the idea that dreams meant anything, a real scarab beetle flew into Jung's office and landed on the desk between them. Or a patient would describe an internal conflict they were wrestling with. And then an external event would occur that seemed to mirror that conflict perfectly, offering insight or resolution in a way that felt orchestrated. At first, Jung tried to explain these patterns using the tools he had: cause and effect, unconscious influence. Maybe the patient was selectively noticing things that matched their internal state. Maybe they were projecting meaning onto random events. But none of those explanations were enough. The timing was too precise, the specificity was too sharp, the emotional impact was too real. So Jung did something radical for a scientist in his time. He started collaborating with a physicist, Wolfgang Pauli, one of the pioneers of quantum mechanics. Pauli was dealing with his own psychological struggles, and he came to Jung for analysis. But their relationship quickly became a collaboration. Together, they explored the idea that perhaps the division between mind and matter, between inner and outer, between subject and object, was an illusion. Quantum physics was already revealing something strange, that the act of observation changes the behavior of particles, that before a particle is observed, it exists in a state of probability, a wave of potential, and the moment it's measured, it collapses into a definite state. Consciousness, in other words, plays a role in shaping physical reality at the quantum level. Jung took that idea and ran with it. He proposed that synchronicity was evidence of an underlying connectedness, a field of meaning that linked all things, not through cause and effect, but through resonance. He called this field the collective unconscious, a shared layer of consciousness beneath individual awareness, where archetypes, symbols, and patterns exist independently of personal experience. Universal images that show up across cultures, across time, without anyone teaching them. The mother, the hero, the shadow, the trickster. These aren't learned. They're innate. They're part of the structure of human consciousness itself. And Jung believed that synchronicities were moments when the personal unconscious, your individual inner world, and the collective unconscious, the shared field, aligned with external reality, creating a visible, tangible event that carried meaning. This wasn't mysticism for Jung, at least not in the way most people think of mysticism. This was science, or at least it was an attempt to expand science beyond materialism. He wasn't saying that synchronicity violated the laws of physics. He was saying that there were laws we didn't understand yet, laws of meaning, laws of resonance, laws of connection that operated outside the framework of cause and effect. And he spent the rest of his life documenting these events, studying them, building a conceptual framework, trying to map the territory of this invisible order. Here's why this matters for you right now. Jung's work on synchronicity is not just historical curiosity. It's not an interesting footnote in the history of psychology. It's a direct challenge to the way most people experience reality. Most people walk through life believing that their thoughts, their feelings, their internal states have no impact on the external world. They believe that reality is neutral, indifferent, that things happen to them and they react. They're passengers, observers, victims of circumstance. Jung's work suggests the opposite, that your internal state is constantly broadcasting, not through physical mechanisms, not through your actions alone, but through something deeper, a resonance, a frequency, and that reality is constantly responding, not in a mechanical, predictable cause and effect way, but in a meaningful, symbolic, synchronistic way. The more aligned you are internally, the more aware you are of your own thoughts, emotions, desires, and intentions, the more synchronicities you will experience. And the more you recognize those synchronicities, acknowledge them, and act on them, the more reality will respond. This is not wishful thinking. This is not the law of attraction watered down into positive affirmations and vision boards. This is something deeper. This is co-creation. This is proof that you are not separate from reality. You're woven into it, and it's woven into you. If this is opening your eyes to how reality actually works, let me know by liking this video. This feedback tells me this work is worth continuing. Now that you understand what synchronicity is and where the idea comes from, let's get practical. How do you actually identify a synchronicity when it happens? Because here's the thing, synchronicities are happening all the time, far more often than most people realize, but most people don't notice them. They're moving too fast, thinking too much, caught in the noise of daily life, disconnected from their intuition. Or they notice something strange, something that feels significant, something that makes them pause for a moment, but then they dismiss it. They tell themselves it's just coincidence. They rationalize it away. They explain it using logic, using probability, using anything that lets them avoid the uncomfortable truth that maybe, just maybe, reality is responding to them. And in doing so, they close the channel. They stop the conversation. They miss the signal. So the first step in working with synchronicity is learning to recognize when it's actually occurring. And there are clear signs, 4 specific markers that tell you you're experiencing a synchronicity, not just a random event. The first sign is impossible timing. A synchronicity doesn't just happen. It happens at exactly the right moment. You're thinking about a question, wrestling with it internally, and within seconds, sometimes within the same breath, you hear someone nearby say something that answers it. Not close to an answer, the answer. Or you're deciding whether to take a risk, whether to quit your job, whether to end a relationship, whether to move across the country. And the moment you commit internally, the moment you decide, you receive external confirmation. An email, a phone call, a message, a sign in the physical world. The timing is so precise that it feels orchestrated. And it is, not by a person, not by conscious design, but by whatever force Jung was pointing to, the field of meaning, the responsive intelligence woven into the fabric of reality. Here's an example. You're driving home, thinking about whether you should reach out to an old friend you had a falling out with. You're unsure. You don't know if it's the right move. And at the exact moment you think, maybe I should just let it go, you look up, and the car in front of you has a bumper sticker that says, "Forgive and move forward." That's impossible timing. That's not your brain finding patterns. That's reality speaking. The second sign is repetition. Synchronicity loves patterns. It loves emphasis. You see the same number over and over. 11:11, 4:44, 3:33, 5:55. Not once, not twice, but 5 times in one day. On the clock, on a license plate, on a receipt, on a street address, or you hear the same phrase from 3 different people in one day, people who don't know each other, who have no connection, but they all say the exact same thing to you. Or you keep encountering the same symbol. A specific animal keeps showing up, a butterfly, a hawk, a crow, or a color, or a word. You see it in a book, hear it in a song, see it on a billboard, and then someone mentions it in passing. This isn't your brain looking for patterns. This is reality emphasizing something, underlining it, making sure you don't miss it. The repetition is the signal. And the more you see it, the more urgent the message. The third sign is emotional resonance. This is the most important one. When a synchronicity happens, you feel it. There's a visceral response, a chill that runs through your body, a sudden clarity that cuts through all the noise, a sense of rightness or wrongness that doesn't come from logic. Your body knows before your mind does. This is not intellectual. You can't think your way into recognizing a synchronicity. You have to feel it. And that feeling is the proof. Coincidences don't create that charge. They're neutral, forgettable. You notice them and move on. But synchronicities land. They hit you in the chest. They stop you in your tracks. They wake you up, even if just for a moment. Even if you try to rationalize it away later, in the moment, you feel it. The fourth sign is that the event answers an internal question. Synchronicities are responsive. They don't happen in a vacuum. They don't occur randomly, disconnected from your inner life. They happen in relationship to something you're processing internally. A decision you're making, a fear you're facing, a desire you're holding, a question you've been asking, even if you haven't spoken it out loud. The external event reflects, clarifies, or responds to that internal state. It's not random. It's relational. It's a dialogue. You ask, reality answers. You wonder, reality confirms or redirects. And that's how you know it's real. So if you're walking through life and something happens that has impossible timing, shows up repeatedly, creates emotional resonance in your body, and directly relates to something you were just thinking or feeling, you're not imagining it. You're not projecting meaning onto chaos. You're not crazy. You're experiencing synchronicity. And the more you acknowledge it, the more you honor it, the more you act on it, the more it will happen. Because synchronicity is not passive, it's a conversation. And like any conversation, it deepens when both sides are engaged. But knowing that a synchronicity is occurring is only the first step. The next question is, what does it mean? And this is where most people get stuck. They see the signs, they feel the resonance, but then they freeze, unsure how to interpret what they're experiencing. Because synchronicity is not a universal language with fixed meanings. Seeing 1111 doesn't mean the same thing for everyone. A red cardinal showing up in your life doesn't carry the same message for you that it carries for someone else. This isn't like reading a dictionary where every symbol has one definition. Synchronicity is personal. It's contextual. The meaning of a synchronistic event is always tied to your specific inner state at the moment it occurs. So the question isn't, what does this symbol mean in general? The question is, what does this mean for me right now, given what I'm going through? Let's break this down step by step, because understanding how to interpret synchronicity is what transforms it from a curiosity into a tool. Synchronicity is relational. It's a response, which means you have to know what you're asking in order to understand what reality is answering. So the first question you ask yourself when a synchronicity occurs is, what was I thinking about? What was I feeling? What question was I holding when this happened? Because that context is everything. It's the key that unlocks the meaning. Let's say you keep seeing the number 1111. You see it on the clock, on a receipt, on a license plate, multiple times in one day. Now, if you're thinking about whether to take a leap into a new career, whether to quit your job and start your own business, 1111 might be a confirmation, a sign that you're on the right path, that the universe is supporting this decision, that it's time to move. But if you're thinking about a relationship that's falling apart, wondering whether to stay or leave, whether to fight for it or walk away, 1111 might be a different kind of message, a call to alignment. A reminder that something is out of balance and needs attention. Same number, different context, different meaning. The event itself, the repeated number, the symbol, the impossible timing, is neutral until you add your context. And your context is your internal state, your question, your emotional process, your crossroads. This is why you can't outsource the interpretation of synchronicity. You can't Google what 1111 means and apply it to your life without considering what you were going through when you saw it. The meaning is not in the number. The meaning is in the relationship between the number and your inner world. So when a synchronicity happens, pause. Don't rush to Google what it means. Don't look up the spiritual meaning of a cardinal or a butterfly or the number 3. Start with yourself. Start with the question, what was I just thinking about? What am I processing right now? What decision am I facing? What fear am I holding? What desire am I trying to manifest? And then ask, how does this external event relate to that internal question? Does it answer the question? Does it redirect it? Does it amplify it? The second question you ask is, what feeling does this event create in me? Because remember, synchronicity carries emotional resonance, and that feeling is part of the message. It's not separate from the meaning. It is the meaning encoded in your body's response. Does the event make you feel confirmed, supported, like you're on the right track, like the universe just gave you a thumbs up? That's one kind of message. It's telling you, yes, keep going, you're aligned, don't second-guess yourself. But does the event make you feel uneasy, unsettled, like you're being warned, like something needs to change? That's a different message. It's not a no. It's not punishment. It's a course correction. It's reality saying, pay attention. Something here is off. You're ignoring something. You're lying to yourself about something, and you need to look at it. Or does the event make you feel seen, understood, less alone? Like something is witnessing your struggle and saying, I know what you're going through, and you're not alone. That's a message too. It's validation. It's support. It's the universe reminding you that you're held. The feeling is not noise. It's signal. Your body is interpreting the synchronicity before your mind can catch up. And most people dismiss that feeling because they've been trained to trust logic over intuition. But synchronicity doesn't work through logic, it works through resonance. So trust the feeling, let it guide your interpretation. The third question is, what direction is this pointing me toward? Synchronicities are not just confirmation, they're not passive reflections, they're navigation, they're course corrections, they're invitations. So when something synchronistic happens, ask yourself, what action is this calling me to take? What is this asking me to look at? What is this asking me to change or release or move toward? Sometimes the answer is clear. You see a sign, and you know exactly what it means. You were about to give up on a project, and the synchronicity tells you to keep going. You were about to settle for less, and the synchronicity tells you to choose growth. You were about to ignore your intuition, and the synchronicity tells you to listen. But sometimes the answer isn't immediate. Sometimes you have to sit with it, journal about it, let the meaning reveal itself over time. And that's okay. Synchronicity doesn't demand instant understanding. It doesn't need you to figure it out in the next 5 minutes. It invites you into deeper awareness. It asks you to stay curious, to keep paying attention, to let the pattern unfold. And sometimes the full meaning only becomes clear weeks or months later, when you look back and realize that the synchronicity was pointing you toward something you couldn't see at the time. If you recognize this pattern in your own life, if you're starting to see how synchronicity works as a personal guidance system, write in the comments, "I am aligned with the universe." Let that statement anchor you. Let it remind you that you're not separate from reality, you're in dialogue, and the universe is listening. Now let's go deeper. Because once you understand that synchronicity is personal, once you know how to interpret it, the next question is, what does this have to do with manifestation? And the answer is, everything. This is where Jung's work intersects with the law of attraction in a way that most people completely miss. Jung discovered something that most people still don't fully grasp. That reality is not separate from consciousness. That the inner world and the outer world are not two different realms operating independently. They're two sides of the same process. Your internal state, your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs, your energy, your frequency is constantly broadcasting, and reality is constantly responding, not through mechanical cause and effect, not in a way that you can control or manipulate with tricks and techniques, but through resonance, through synchronicity. This is the real law of attraction, not the watered-down version you see in self-help books that tells you to visualize a car and it will appear in your driveway, not the idea that if you think positive thoughts, money will fall from the sky. The real law is this: your internal state creates a field of resonance, and that field attracts, aligns with, and generates synchronistic events that reflect your state back to you. When you're aligned, when you're clear, when you're connected to your truth, when you're operating from a place of authentic desire rather than fear or lack, synchronicities increase. They become more frequent, more specific, more undeniable. You start seeing repeated signs that confirm you're on the right path. Doors start opening that were previously closed. People show up at the right time with the right information. Opportunities appear out of nowhere. Resources materialize. And it's not luck, it's not coincidence, it's resonance. Your internal state is broadcasting a signal, and reality is responding with synchronistic events that match that signal. But when you're misaligned, when you're disconnected, when you're operating from fear, doubt, scarcity, resentment, or resistance, synchronicities either stop altogether or they start showing up as blocks, as warnings, as patterns that keep repeating to get your attention. You keep missing flights. You keep running into obstacles. You keep attracting situations, people, or circumstances that mirror the exact thing you're trying to avoid. And that's not punishment. That's not the universe being cruel. That's feedback. Reality is showing you through synchronicity where you're out of alignment, where you're lying to yourself, where you're resisting your own growth, where you're holding on to something that's keeping you stuck. This is why synchronicity is the most powerful tool for manifestation that you have, because it's not about forcing reality to bend to your will. It's not about manipulating the universe with affirmations and vision boards. It's about coming into alignment with your deepest truth, with your authentic self, with your soul's direction, and then watching reality respond. It's about asking clear questions, setting clear intentions, releasing resistance, and then paying attention to the signs that show up to guide you. Let me give you a concrete example so you can feel how this works. You decide you want to start a business. You set the intention. You tell yourself you're going to do it, but deep down, underneath the surface intention, you're terrified. You don't believe you can do it. You're afraid you'll fail. You're afraid people will judge you. You're operating from fear, even if you're not consciously aware of it. What happens? You start seeing synchronicities that reflect that fear. You hear people talk about businesses failing. You see articles about economic collapse. You run into obstacles at every turn. The person you were counting on to help you backs out. The funding falls through. The website crashes. And you think, the universe is telling me not to do this. The universe is blocking me. But that's not what's happening. The universe is not blocking you. The universe is showing you your own internal state. It's mirroring your fear back to you through synchronistic events so you can see it, work with it, face it, and shift it. Now let's say you do the inner work. You sit with the fear, you journal about it, you talk to someone, you realize where the fear is coming from. You heal the wound that's driving it. You shift your internal state from scarcity to possibility, from doubt to trust, from fear to alignment, from I don't think I can do this to I'm ready to step into this. What happens? The synchronicities change. Suddenly you meet someone at a coffee shop who has the exact skill set you need and offers to help you for free. You overhear a conversation that gives you the perfect idea for your business model. You open your email and there's an opportunity you weren't expecting, a grant, a partnership, a client. You see repeated signs that say, yes, keep going. This is your path. And it's not that you suddenly got lucky. It's not that the universe randomly decided to support you this time. It's that your internal state shifted and reality responded. That's the law. That's how it works. Synchronicity is your GPS. It's showing you in real time whether you're aligned or misaligned, whether you're operating from truth or fear, whether you're on your path or off it. And the more you pay attention to it, the more you use it, the more you trust it, the more powerful it becomes. This is co-creation. This is what Jung was trying to tell us. You're not separate from reality. You're not a victim of circumstance. You're shaping reality with every thought, every feeling, every belief, every state you hold. And synchronicity is the proof. It's the visible evidence that reality is responding to you. If you've been noticing patterns but feel like something is blocking your full alignment, like there's a missing piece you can't quite see, like you're doing all the right things but still not seeing the results, I left something for you in the first pinned comment. It's for those who are ready to break through. But here's the thing. Most people aren't seeing synchronicities, or they're seeing them but dismissing them, and there's a reason for that. There are specific blocks that shut down your ability to perceive synchronicity. And if you're not aware of these blocks, if you don't know what's interfering with your perception, you're walking through life blind to the signals that are all around you. You're missing the guidance, you're ignoring the feedback, and you're wondering why nothing is working, why you feel stuck, why you can't seem to manifest what you want. The first block is mental noise. Your mind is too busy, too loud, too cluttered. You're thinking about 10 things at once. You're scrolling through your phone while you're walking down the street. You're planning tomorrow while you're supposed to be present today. You're worrying, analyzing, replaying old conversations, rehearsing future ones. And in that state, you can't hear the signal. Synchronicity requires a certain quality of attention, not forced, not hyper-focused, not straining to see signs everywhere, but relaxed, open, present, soft. If your mind is racing, if you're caught in mental chatter, you'll miss it. The sign will be right in front of you and you won't see it. The person will say exactly what you needed to hear, and you won't register it because you're too busy thinking about something else. The second block is skepticism. You've been trained your whole life to believe that reality is random, that coincidences are meaningless, that your thoughts don't matter, that you're separate from the world around you. And that belief creates a filter, a lens through which you interpret every event. So you see something strange, something that feels significant, something that makes you pause, and immediately your rational mind jumps in to explain it away. It's just a coincidence. I'm reading too much into this. I'm being superstitious. This is silly. And in that moment you close the door, you shut down the conversation, you dismiss the signal. Synchronicity doesn't force itself on you. It respects your free will. If you don't want to see it, you won't. The third block is disconnection from intuition. Synchronicity speaks to your body, your gut, your instinct, your knowing, before it speaks to your rational mind. But most people are completely disconnected from that channel. They've been taught to ignore their intuition, to trust logic over feeling, to dismiss the inner voice that says, "Pay attention to this. Stop. Listen. This matters." They've spent years, decades, overriding that voice in favor of what makes sense, what's practical, what other people think. And without that intuitive connection, synchronicity becomes invisible. You might see the sign with your eyes, but you won't feel it in your body. And without the feeling, without the resonance, it's just noise. It's just another random event in a meaningless world. The fourth block is that you're not asking questions. Synchronicity is responsive. It's a dialogue. It answers. But most people aren't asking. They're not holding clear intentions. They're not wondering, questioning, seeking. They're just reacting. Moving through life on autopilot, going to work, coming home, scrolling, sleeping, repeating. And if you're not asking, if you're not engaged, if you're not curious, reality has nothing to respond to. The field of meaning is there, ready, waiting, but you're not engaging with it. So the synchronicities that could guide you, support you, redirect you, show you the next step, never show up. Because there's no question for them to answer. There's no intention for them to support. But here's the good news. You can remove these blocks. You can clear the interference. You can cultivate synchronicity. You can train yourself to see it, feel it, and work with it. And it doesn't require years of meditation or special gifts or being born with some kind of psychic ability. It just requires a shift in how you engage with reality. And it starts with a few simple practices that anyone can do. The first practice is to ask clear questions. Synchronicity is responsive. It answers. But you have to ask, and not vague questions. Not, "What should I do with my life?" That's too broad, too undefined. The field of meaning doesn't know how to respond to that. It's like shouting into the void and expecting a specific answer. Ask specific questions, questions that have weight, questions that matter to you. Should I take this job or stay where I am? Is this relationship aligned with my growth, or am I staying out of fear? What's the next step I need to take in my business? What am I not seeing about this situation? What do I need to release to move forward? And then, this is critical, let the question go. Don't obsess over it. Don't sit there forcing an answer. Don't analyze it to death. Just hold it lightly in your awareness, like you're putting it out into the field, and then stay open to what shows up. Trust that the answer will come. And it will. Through a conversation, through a book, through a dream, through a synchronistic event that makes the answer undeniable. The second practice is to maintain relaxed attention, not forced, not straining to see signs in every single thing, not walking around paranoid, looking for meaning in every license plate and every bird that flies by, but present, aware, engaged with your surroundings. Pay attention to what stands out. Pay attention to what repeats. Pay attention to what creates a feeling in your body. This doesn't mean you become hypervigilant. It means you stay curious, you stay awake. You let the world speak to you instead of drowning it out with noise, with distractions, with the endless scroll of your phone. The third practice is to journal your synchronicities. Write them down, not just the event, but the full context. What were you thinking about when it happened? What were you feeling? What question were you holding? What did the event mean to you in that moment? And what action, if any, did it inspire you to take? Over time, you'll start to see patterns. You'll notice that certain symbols show up repeatedly when you're at a crossroads, that certain numbers appear when you're aligned. That reality has its own language, and it's been speaking to you all along. And the more you document it, the more you track it, the more you'll trust it, because you'll have proof, not proof for anyone else, proof for you. The fourth practice is to act on the synchronicities you receive. This is critical. This is where most people fail. They see the signs, they feel the resonance, they recognize the synchronicity, and then they do nothing. They ignore it, they rationalize it away, they wait for more proof. And the signs stop coming, because synchronicity is not entertainment, it's not a parlor trick, it's not the universe showing off, it's guidance. And guidance only works if you follow it. If you see a sign and you feel the pull to act, act. If reality is telling you to reach out to someone, reach out. Don't wait. Don't second guess. If it's telling you to take a risk, take it. If it's telling you to let something go, let it go. The more you act on the signs, the more you honor the synchronicities, the more reality will respond. The more you ignore them, the quieter they become. Because synchronicity is a conversation, and conversations die when one side stops engaging. Now I want to tell you a story, a true story from Jung's own life that captures everything we've been talking about, because this isn't theory, this isn't speculation. This is something Jung experienced directly, and it changed the way he understood reality forever. Jung was working with a patient, a woman. She was highly educated, highly rational, deeply skeptical of anything that couldn't be explained by logic and science. She had come to him because she was stuck, depressed, disconnected, unable to move forward in her life, and Jung knew why. She was trapped in her head, cut off from her intuition, from her body, from the irrational, symbolic, unconscious parts of herself that hold the keys to healing and transformation. But she couldn't see it. Every time Jung tried to help her access that deeper layer, she resisted. She dismissed dreams as meaningless. She refused to engage with symbols. She intellectualized everything. And because of that resistance, she wasn't healing. She was stuck in the same patterns, going nowhere. One day, she came into his office for a session, and she told him about a dream she'd had the night before. In the dream, she was given a golden scarab beetle, a specific insect, Egyptian, ancient, symbolic. She described it in detail, but even as she was telling Jung about it, she was dismissive. She didn't think it meant anything. She thought dreams were just random neural noise. Jung listened, and as she was talking, he heard something. A tapping sound, soft, rhythmic, coming from the window behind him. He turned around, and there on the glass was an insect, not just any insect, a scarab beetle, a rose chafer to be exact, the closest thing to a golden scarab that exists in Switzerland. It was tapping on the window, trying to get in. In that moment, Jung stood up, walked to the window, opened it, caught the beetle in his hand and turned back to his patient. He held it out to her and said, "Here is your scarab." She was stunned. The skepticism cracked. The rational mind, the filter that had been keeping her stuck, shattered. Because there was no way to explain this, no logical chain of cause and effect. No rational explanation for why a beetle that matched her dream would show up at the exact moment she was describing it. And in that moment of shock, of awe, of undeniable synchronicity, something shifted in her. The resistance broke. The healing began. From that point forward, she engaged with the process differently. She opened to the symbolic, the irrational, the mysterious, and her life transformed. This is what Jung meant by synchronicity. It's not just a curious phenomenon. It's not entertainment. It's not something to collect and marvel at. Synchronicity is a portal. It's a moment when the boundary between inner and outer dissolves, and you're confronted with the undeniable truth that reality is not what you thought it was, that you are not separate, that the universe is speaking, and that if you're willing to listen, if you're willing to see, if you're willing to act, your life can change in ways you never imagined. The scarab didn't just confirm the dream, it broke the patient's resistance. It opened a door that had been locked. It allowed transformation to happen. And that's what synchronicity does. It's not passive. It's not neutral. It's transformative. It's a tool for change, for growth, for evolution. But only if you're willing to engage with it. Only if you're willing to let it crack you open. So here's what I want you to understand. Synchronicity is not something that happens to you while you watch from the sidelines. It's not a sign that you're special or chosen or different from anyone else. Everyone experiences synchronicity. It's woven into the fabric of reality. It's available to everyone, all the time, but most people miss it. Most people dismiss it. Most people rationalize it away. And in doing so, they stay stuck. They stay disconnected. They keep operating as if they're separate from reality, as if their thoughts and feelings don't matter, as if the universe is indifferent. But you know better now. You know that synchronicity is proof that you're not separate. You're in dialogue, you're co-creating, your internal state is broadcasting, and reality is responding. Not because you're forcing it, not because you're manipulating it, but because that's how reality works. Consciousness and matter are not two different things. They're two sides of the same process. And the more you align with that truth, the more you step into that co-creative role, the more your life will reflect it. The more synchronicities you'll see, the more doors will open, the more support you'll receive, not from some external force granting you favors, but from reality itself, responding to who you're becoming. This is not passive. This is not about sitting back and waiting for signs. This is about asking clear questions, holding clear intentions, paying attention, trusting your intuition, acting on the guidance you receive. It's about recognizing that you're not a victim of circumstance. You're not powerless. You're not at the mercy of a random, chaotic, meaningless universe. You're in relationship with reality, and that relationship is alive. It's dynamic, it's responsive, and it's waiting for you to engage. Jung spent his entire life studying this, documenting it, trying to map it, not because he wanted to prove anything to the skeptics, but because he knew that understanding synchronicity was the key to understanding how reality actually works, and how we, as conscious beings, participate in shaping it. He knew that once you see it, once you feel it, once you experience it undeniably, you can never go back to the old way of seeing the world. You can't unsee it, and that changes everything. You're not separate from reality. You're woven into it, and it's woven into you. Every thought, every feeling, every belief, every state you hold is broadcasting into the field, and the field is responding. Through synchronicity, through signs, through events that mirror your inner world back to you. And the more you recognize that, the more you honor it, the more you trust it, the more powerfully you can navigate your life, the more clearly you can see your path, the more aligned you become with your truth. This is the gift Jung left us, not just a theory, not just a concept, but a way of engaging with reality that restores your power, your clarity, and your connection to the mystery that's been there all along. If you stayed until the end, write in the comments, "I see the signs." And I've left another lesson on your screen now to take you one step deeper. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.